Good morning and welcome to your daily Gameface. I am Dr. Kim Lannon and I am here with Lou, but I'm laughing because right when we went on off set to come back on, Ash jumped up and he's like, Ash, I'm home doing this lovely podcast on this lovely day from home. And when I'm home, I have children.
Yep.
As soon as you went to put me up on there, he was like, "Hello."
So I don't work from home.
Rocky, so everyone will hear Rocky, I'm sure, at one point or another barking because he's barky. So good morning, Lou.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm hot. It's hot in the studio. You're glad you're not here.
Oh, well, I'm glad I'm not there then as well, because then I'd be complaining about it and probably be itching as I itch myself right now.
Because we're scheduled to go 15 minutes before 10 and the heat and the air conditioning isn't.
Well, we're late.
Yep. Well,
and I apologize, but you know what? When people listen to this later, they have no idea what time it is. So I'm not going to say.
I know.
So I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. It feels like we're coming into fall already, which is very upsetting because it's only August 20. What is today? 26th?
26th.
And
it's almost September.
Doesn't it feel like up here in New England in the past 2 weeks, we've gone like from summer into fall, like at night, we're already sundowning early and we're having all kinds of changes. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Why sunset seems early, doesn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's 7:30, but it feels like it's dark at 4.
Are you one of these people? Do you want to go to daylight savings? It's daylight savings all the time, right?
Yes. I am one of those people who would like to keep it that way all year round.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. And I also think I was talking about it with Kevin this morning on the way in.
What?
I was talking about it with Kevin on the way in today because he was asking me about it. Not only do I want to do this all year round, I want to go to Atlantic time. I want to go ahead an hour.
Oh, well, that would be fine because that would be like, when I go to Florida, when you go to Florida.
An hour behind, yeah. Well, I mean, sunset's an hour later.
They're the same. They're the same. However, because of where they sit in the I'm going to say in the water, but on Earth and in the latitude and attitude, geographically, they have longer days. And
about an hour, right?
About an hour and 20 minutes. So it's lovely when you go there in the middle of winter. And also, the only problem is, but I don't work down there, but the only problem is you do wake up down there in the dark. So if you're a 6 o'clock waker upper or 6:30, it's really not light until later.
That's what you get. You're going to get up at 6:30. That's what you get.
Right. Or even 7:30, you're still barely. So that's why people in retirement down there love it.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to do my show today on something really, I think, exciting. I've been working hard on these because they're also part of my book, right? So these are why I'm doing them. But however, I've had many, and I mean many, people asking me to make comments from a psychologist perspective on the Lindsay Clancy trial.
Oh, God. See, we skipped the whole Karen Reed trial, and you're going to go to Lindsay
No, we didn't skip it. We did talk about Karen. Well, Karen Reed's old news now because she, we could talk about that sometime. But right now, the Lindsay Clancy, so Lou, I don't know what your opinion is because we haven't talked about it. So I'm going to say, don't give me your opinion unless you agree with me. But at first,
I'll be honest off the top. I only have a fleeting. I have a fleeting attachment to this because I haven't followed it too closely. I know what the basics involved are, but that's about it.
Well, I am fully immersed more than I ever thought or wanted to be because I have a sleuth of an investigative friend who is, I swear to God, she should have worked for the FBI or she should just be a PI in general because she's amazing. But also, I follow a whole bunch of doctors online and we're all sort of talking about it from, the perspective of the failed system, but also the fact that when I first started, I absolutely was in the camp of she did it. I am 1,000,000% in the camp that she did not do it. And people were like asking me all week, do you think she did it? And my stance is no. If I was a juror, I have beyond reasonable doubt, like beyond reasonable doubt after listening to the testimony over and over and over again, and not just clips, but full testimony. I am fully convinced that she did not do it. And So the downside of that is the person I think did it, or the people I think colluded to do what they did, won't pay the price for this. And so the best thing could happen is that she gets justice, that she just gets released and not guilty. But they don't go to closing arguments until tomorrow. And
sounds a lot like the Karen Reed trial, if you ask me.
yes, and it's got twists and turns like Karen Reed trial to beat the band, and it's quite something. So, I think that I sort of laugh. I'm like, if you put a group of TikTok women together online, you could solve a case faster than anybody. I swear to God. And there's some men on there too, but you put a group of us women together on a TikTok feed and we have got it figured out. And
I can imagine. I just watched a group of women go after my stepdaughter's prospective boyfriend, so I know how that goes.
So you get it. You understand. Yeah. We get the assignment. Let me tell you,
I'm now wondering what I went through at the beginning of this relationship. How much I was researched.
I bet. Right. Yeah. You were vetted completely. Probably, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, but you've been in the relationship for quite some time. So I don't know if there was the access that we have now to technology things.
Yeah. I don't know if they needed it. All right. So for those of us who aren't fully vested, just give us a little summary.
Okay. So a little summary. So the original thing was that Karen, now you got me on Karen Reed. Lindsay was depressed. She had postpartum depression. She had severe mental health issues going on. She had told her doctors that she had this going on. The doctors were giving her a lot of medication. Husband Patrick is admittedly a very checked out father and husband, but knew about it. Kind of victim mentality looky, kind of on the surface from the get-go. Yep. Blah, blah, blah. Very weird affect in terms of weird meaning in clinical terms, very flat, abnormal kind of reaction to what, had happened. His comment very, very briefly on his children was they were good people. His 5'3" and barely 1-year-old. That was his commentary.
Good people.
Right from the get-go, but not an alert. But now I'm on alert because man's not okay. Anyway, so she, in a very short time window, she apparently went and killed all 3 of her children by going up and down stairs 3 times, supposedly. Heart rate was only at 57. She was laying in the snow, soaking wet, after throwing herself in a catatonic state, almost comatose state, had the exertion level ability to throw herself from a 3rd floor story window out of her house after killing her children and slitting her wrists superficially, I might add, and slitting her throat from the wrong side of her, which I'll get into if you want to, but she's not left-handed, she's right-handed. So everything was left-handed, and just happens to be their husband and his new wife are left-handers. And she had all these crushed up pills, which, by the way, the doctor who's on the stand currently right now saying it was really hard. It's very difficult to crush up pills. No, it's not. And she's a nurse. So supposedly she looked up how to do something to her carotid artery. No nurses need to do that. No doctors need to do that. Yeah. Her thyroid was crushed. Do you know how hard it is to crush a thyroid?
No.
So her thyroid was crushed, but yet she was still able to throw herself headfirst out a window, not have any response that is, no matter what, not have the natural reflex response to put your hands out, therefore breaking hands or arms, which implies a lot. Anyway, and she admitted, now everyone gets on this, she admitted she killed the children and she was trying to kill herself. The only person that said that she said that is Patrick. She never actually could speak. There were 8 or 10, I don't know, roughly, don't crucify me on the number. There were many people at the scene after a very short window of this happening that she supposedly did this, that said she could not speak. She couldn't, there were no words.
Right.
No words. So there was no way Patrick comes home and after he goes out for 20 minutes and he comes back and she's 82 degrees laying in the snow. You know how hard it is to get to 82 degrees in the snow and how long it takes? Let's go to the Karen Reed trial, right?
Yeah, really.
It takes a while.
How long?
So that means it wasn't done. She didn't kill these children and almost kill herself and put herself out in the snow and have her body temperature be at 82 degrees and her Apple Watch show that she was at 57 heartbeat, but is told that she ran up and down the stairs multiple times to kill her children. The math isn't mathin'.
No.
So
What was the manner of death for the children?
Allegedly they were strangled by exercise bands. However, there's no DNA evidence of any fingerprints other than Patrick's on the exercise bands at all.
Strangling a person is not easy.
No, and it doesn't take. And so coming and also they were sailor's knots. He knows how to do sailor's knots. She does not.
Oh man. Okay.
There's so many things. So.
Wow.
But on surface, it absolutely looks like that. But when you actually start looking at all the evidence and all the things that happened and whatever, everything has been, how did she come to know about X, Y, and Z? And by the way, the doctors I'm so mortified and embarrassed for my field with the particular individuals that they have up there on the stand testifying for the prosecution. I'm like, oh my God, this is.
You know how expert testimony is. They can buy whatever testimony they want.
This testimony of these particular, unfortunately, men and the one woman, literally when Reddington puts his hand to his head quite often during the trial, because I'm putting my hand to my head. I'm like, oh my God, that the fact that you are still working in this field. They have someone that was an expert witness who hasn't seen a person in postpartum or done anything with anybody that's pregnant. And I think it's almost like 45 years. They wrote an article in their youth with their father, who was a doctor, and he's a doctor in forensic psych, but has no experience in this. And Reddington outed it yesterday.
Never had a case in 45 years.
Not on that. No, but yeah, just no.
Wow.
Oh, I have so many things, but that's not what the show's about today. So,
okay. Now I got to dig into the trial.
But it is epic. People are going to want me. I can already feel it. I just got texted like, can you just talk about this? No, I'm not. But I will prepare something a little bit more so that I don't just come out with like all the random stuff. But
yeah.
And by then the verdict will be in, and then I'll either be happy or I'll be very upset for Karen. Karen. Oh my God! Now you've got me talking about Karen, Lindsay. Yeah.
Well, all the civil stuff with Karen is worse.
The doctors, unfortunately, I can say that as a treater in this field, the misdiagnosis of her and the treatment of her with the medications, this is one of the problems in my field, is that they over medicate. And you know me, I'm a natural, holistic, I'm all for medication if it's necessary, but I am not into treat every symptom with a different medication and then you have 15 medications. That's a problem. It's not a good way to do things. It's still going on in the medical model. It's unhealthy. And doctors do it all the time. And she had a very young, very brand new psychiatrist, which there's nothing wrong with that, but she was just left and right they were all doing that. They were giving her multiple medications. And he had access to all of them, and he had them in his truck, and he crushed them, and he put it in her lemonade, and she didn't know. She was completely Lulu in her mind, probably because of the amount of in her stomach contents. That was what it was. All these medications.
What was her heart rate again? That seems very low.
57. That's not a person strangling children who are fighting.
No, it's not a person going upstairs.
No. And that's also a reason why a father would change his clothes out in that 15-minute window. In one video that you see him in CVS, he's in one thing, and another thing, he's in another. And he's a runner, and he put his running shoes on. Things that make you go, There's so many things. I mean, it's a bounce. Everything I just said was like bouncing all over the case. But yeah, there's a timeline. So, but I can be more concise, but not today. The only thing I'm going to be concise about today is that my belief is that she needs clinical psychological help that's really good. She's currently, it's public record, she's at Tewksbury State since this happened. So she's right down the street from me. And they shuttle her in every day to the trial. And I would imagine she's getting much better care now. She looks like she's clear, very clear.
Mhm.
I mean, that, when you're being poisoned and drugged to death, you look good when you're not. So unfortunately, she's paralyzed for life.
Oh, God.
So, because she threw herself out the window, threw being the operative word.
Yeah.
With all that 57 heartbeat rate, and yeah, you got to be laying in the snow. And she was soaking wet. Well, here's a theory. It's a conspiracy theory, sure. He soaked her in water. He had her on ice, so to speak, for a while.
Yeah.
And Ash agrees. Ash was like, yeah, right. He's right behind me. He's like looking at me like, you're right, mommy.
I don't want to drag you too far down the tunnel on this, but you
Yes,
mentioned, I kind of do. You mentioned earlier that you don't think that he would be brought to justice. So why is he protected?
So from my understanding from my lawyer colleagues that if she's not found guilty, that nothing can happen to him specifically because of this. They say that he can't be tried. I don't think that's true, but I don't know enough legally about that kind of thing. I actually thought that once, they can go after a new person. So, but
he's not a co-defendant in any way, right? So he's not being tried for this.
He's not being
double jeopardy.
And yesterday, he won't let anyone have his phone records. He won't let. And yesterday, he had his lawyers put out something to CNN that they wanted everyone on TikTok and everyone talking about him and all that to have a gag order put on all of TikTok and all of CNN for talking about it, about him.
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah.
Him has a lot to hide.
Yep.
And when the reason, so just for, because now you got me in it, the very first reason why I started leaning away from believing that she did it was when he testified in the very beginning, 20 some odd days ago. In my field, I watch for tells of people.
Sure.
All the time. I pick up what your tell is, if you're telling the truth, if you're deceiving me, if you're, it doesn't mean that you're lying, but you might not tell the whole truth, and sometimes there's tells that you're lying, right? He has a tell. And his tell is when he's lying or when he's telling partial truth, he does either he touches the back of his head like this and does this thing, and not just like when I'm itching myself because I'm always itchy, right? But he does this thing. And also when he's fabricating or making up something that he's saying she said, or that he is repeating and he gets his words caught up, he does this little, if you go back and watch, and you'll have to, when he was testifying, watch his left shoulder. He does this like little face thing with his left shoulder moves. It's not big, but every time he lies, it's just simplifying it, lying.
Yeah.
That's what he does. And you have to be watching for it. And that's what I watch for because I'm just trained to do that. But oh yeah, and he does it a lot. You can tell when he's straightforward and he's just giving an answer. You can tell the difference when he's looking for the information of what he needs to say and he's filtering, and it's very fast, like micro expression wise. He does this little thing with his shoulder, and then he has a little side gesture with his face.
State's a mess. The state is a total mess.
Don't even get me started on the two women that are doing the prosecution. There's actually, you'll have to go down the rabbit hole on it on your own, because they're actually now making fun of them, which is sad, because there's the women, I don't know how they're going to keep their jobs after this, because I think they've done a poor job, but they're also making fun of the fact that the girl, I'm calling her a girlfriend, she's a full adult grown woman, which is fine because I wear bows in my hair when I run and all. She's got like these big Disney bows that she wears in her hair. Right. People are just going left and right on memes on her. It's brutal.
Wonder if we'll have a second trial like we did with Karen.
Well, I don't. Well, so here's the thing. It's either going to, because he's asked for a mistrial several times. The judge has denied it, but I think the judge is doing that because he wants it to come back as a verdict. It's either going to come back hung when it goes to the jury. It's either going to come back hung and then they'll have to retry, right? Or it's going to come back as a way lesser charge, or it's going to come back as not guilty completely. Because right now, what's on the table is not guilt or not guilt, even though at the beginning of the trial, she pled not guilty, but Patrick said she said it. So therefore they went with that. So then now it's about whether she has to be in jail or in a psychiatric hospital for the rest of her life. But if they come back and find that there's enough reasonable doubt that she didn't do it, then she can have a not guilty verdict. So the judge is going to instruct I mean, I know enough about this doing my field and having been in cases before in 32 years that
they renounced her plea based on what he said, she said.
The what?
They renounced her plea based on what he said, she said.
Unfortunately, they have. That's yes, and
wow.
and it keeps, and it's interesting because that keeps coming up in the trial. Not about he said, she said, but Reddington keeps driving home, and also on the rebuttals and on the cross about, now, how did you find that out? As a doctor, he's asking them, like, and they're like, well, she said that she told Patrick. Patrick told us that she said blah. That's and it's so right there. There's enough reasonable doubt that, because the doctors who were in the emergency room have said she couldn't speak. Like, then she was intubated. There was no speaking. There was nothing. She was completely catatonic.
So there's no direct evidence of an admission.
It's all hearsay.
Yep.
All. And Reddington is on fire. By the way, connected to the Karen Reed case, he's the lawyer that's helping Lindsay Clancy is helping, I believe, Jen McCabe in the current new case from the Karen Reed trial, representing her to protect her from her thing in the Karen Reed, if you go back to that.
Yeah, God.
So anyways, so here we are.
It's also scary.
I know, right?
We trust the court system.
Well, I'm hoping that this jury does right by her. I mean, I really do.
By the way, philosophical question here, because it happened in Karen Reed and you talked about the potential of a hung jury.
Yep.
Why is a hung jury not reasonable doubt?
Because, well, it is, but they don't come back. So it just means that one person, not the majority, or what, it has to be a majority. That's why it has to be all or none. So if one person says, I believe that she's not guilty, but the rest of them say, well, and they don't move on it, it's not the majority. So therefore so it has to be that it's hung, and it's not assumed that it's and they don't know, they don't know what that is until after they come back and say, we can't come to an agreement, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just considered a retrial, unfortunately.
Wow.
So it's obvious to outsiders looking at it that if it comes back hung, that a number of them, or one of them, is not agreeing either way, that she did or didn't do it, or something's going to get them caught up in that if it's hung, and therefore they can't assume it. That means they have to retry it. And if this goes to a hung jury and not a mistrial, and it goes to a hung jury and gets retried, which it will, and because if it's hung, the fervor that I believe that is going to come the second time around for these witnesses and all the stuff that's happened is going to be epic. It's going to put Karen Reed's trial to shame.
That's a tall order.
Mm-hmm. Reddington's that good. He's one of the, I mean, I thought Karen Reed's lawyer is amazing. Reddington's better.
It's better than Alan Jackson?
The amount of, you can tell the amount of work that he has done personally and is personally invested in her and her innocence. You can tell that he hired prior investigators. Rocky has opinion. There we go.
Rocky has opinion. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So for all of you who are like, okay, yawn, we don't care. Let's talk about Rise. I know it's a weird switch, but you'll all let me know, and I'm sure you will, because you have been, that you'd like more on this trial. But I gave you a little spice today for it, because everyone, like there were tons of people asking me, please talk about it. So I think they wanted more salaciousness, in my opinion, about like some of the other things. But
see, the way you started this is so disappointing, because when I watch
thanks.
TV, the way you stated it is kind of disappointing, because, with the Karen Reed trial as well, because when I watch TV, in the end, I want resolution on the bad guy. I want to see the bad guy go down, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen in either case. So it's
Right.
disappointing.
I mean, I do think so if Lindsay, the biggest thing here is 3 children are dead.
Yep.
I think she was meant to be dead, but I don't think it was meant that she meant to do it herself. I think the unfortunate part, and I know that people will disagree because and I think that there's a small camp of people that disagree. It's not a big camp that
always. Yeah. I mean, even despite everything, there's always a disagreeing camp.
So the disagreeing camp is like, but the children are dead. Yes. Horrific, but you're coming at the wrong person, and she wasn't meant to live. She lived, and he made bank on it, and he was already in an affair. He was already having a marriage that happened very quickly. He already had children with this woman. I mean, it's insane.
Wow.
That's not how, I mean, and people are like, well, how do you know how people, you don't get remarried all of a sudden and have children within 4 months after your wife, your ex-wife, you divorce her. And by the way, they outed the affair on that. He was having an affair way long before this happened, and was with the woman who just happens to be, I'm down the rabbit hole, who just happens to be a bioscientist who has a drug that she helped create to help people basically be in sedation and catatonic states.
Imagine that.
And it can't be traceable.
Wow.
Her name is Rachel Dennis, by the way.
Wow. Okay. Sounds interesting.
Uh-huh. There's a lot of plot twist to it. So anyway, okay. So let's talk about what we're here for.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's rise.
Okay. So this week, so if you've gotten this far, you're here. If not, you can always put in the thing, Lou. Don't worry. If you want to hear about Rise, go to minute blah 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 27, minute 27, and you'll hear about Rise for the week. If not, then you're going to hear about Lindsay Clancy trial. So, okay. So this week I want to talk about, I'm calling it the spark cycle. So, okay. So maybe you could re-edit this and put this in the front, and then
not necessary.
So I feel like, remember back in the day when we were talking about when we first started the podcast, it was COVID had hit right after it, and there were all like, remember there was murders going on, there were police we would have shows about racial injustice, and oh my God, I feel like
we did Amber Heard.
I'm back in the day.
Yeah. So
okay, so the spark cycle, losing yourself and finding your way back. Right. So, so the thing that made me think about this last week afterwards was, it's like, the sort of the rest, restore, rise, like my retreat weekends and all that is it's the central idea isn't simply finding yourself again or just growing. It's often recognizing that sometimes when you're trying to grow, you lose your spark. You know how people get into a rut and they feel like, the routine. It's not that you're losing your spark. It's often because you as a human being just get stuck because you do everything the same every day. So I'm wanting people, obviously we talked about journey a lot, but thinking about life is a constant cycle of losing your spark and then finding it again, right? And it doesn't mean it's lost dead. It just means that it's, stagnant, or it goes very flat.
Right.
And that's what I see a lot of people when I see people that have, anxiety over something, it's because they get stuck, and that's because I'm saying the spark in their life, their sense of purpose, whatever you want to call it, is There's my clinical term.
Yeah, I like
Right?
it.
It's lost that. And then people feel like they have failed themselves or that somehow something is failing. But what if losing your spark, you didn't think of it as like a failure? So what I was thinking about is that I think every person, and I mean every, and I'm not an all or nothing, but I think every person experiences this, and not many people talk about it honestly. Not that they're not being honest, but they just don't talk about it because it is so natural as a default, that the feeling that you've kind of lost your vim and vigor for life, or you're kind of sedentary in your lifestyle, and you wake up one morning and realize, I'm not quite myself anymore. What happened to that person? Or, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm 50, I haven't fulfilled the things I wanted to. I mean, that's kind of what happens. You do that and you're constantly doing a life review.
Right.
And so you wake up in the morning one day, or maybe a lot of days, and be like, I'm just not myself. I'm just not myself. That doesn't mean you have to be on medication. Doesn't mean we need to do what we were doing in that. Oh, I just almost flipped my computer with my coffee. Sorry. But and maybe you're asking yourself, like, I'm just not excited about things I used to be.
Right.
I'm tired. I'm kind of going through the motions. I'm not taking care of myself the best, or I'm taking care of everybody else. You're being honest with yourself. I'm not accomplishing the things I want to. I'm not showing up. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, yet I'm going to work and I'm having dinner and I'm seeing the same people, but I just feel bleh,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes people will panic and they'll have the anxiety, which I'm talking about, which, people then question, no, something's wrong with me. I don't feel like myself anymore. Where did that person go? I mean, this sort of relates to the whole thing with Lindsay Clancy, just saying, because this is what she was going through. But this is just in general, people kind of go through this, like, why can't I get motivation? When I ask people, like, well, what's getting in your way? I often get, I don't know.
Yeah.
People know. That's when you have to look honestly at all those kind of questions, like, what is going on, right? So today, with the spark piece and offering the spark, right, is that it's finding a different perspective, which I talk about all the time, is generating different perspectives. Maybe losing your spark isn't the opposite of finding yourself, right? Maybe it's the part of the process. Maybe it's not even maybe. It is part of the process. It is part of the journey. Knowing that life is a constant cycle of losing that spark or dimming, and then you just finding it again. And how do you find it? There's so many different ways, right? And maybe you as a person, you find that the other side of this isn't supposed to be exactly who you were before. I can't tell you how many times people say, I just wish I was like I was blah blah blah.
Right.
And my answer to that is always, well, if you were that, then these other things wouldn't have happened. And then, yeah, we wouldn't be here, but yet you wouldn't have had all those other things. And usually like a series of other good things that have happened. Right. So I always say, we don't want to go back to that. We want something that, because then we won't get
Find the next thing.
we won't be getting our spark. We're going to be sort of drowning in that. So maybe life is actually just that constant cycle of, losing your spark, finding it again, losing your spark, finding it again, which sounds like, oh my God, that's brutal.
Well, maybe it's inspiring you to seek new opportunity. I mean,
well, yeah, I think so. In finding a spark, right? You're searching, and finding a spark, you're searching to be wiser. You're searching to be more loving and kind to yourself, stronger, setting boundaries, knowing what you don't want versus what you do want, because we focus on what we do want and then the don'ts get in our way. Maybe our real purpose is being part of knowing our cycle. Maybe that's part of the purpose, is knowing what our cycle is so that we can get out of the cycle. We are not meant to stay the same. Even though people hate change, we are not meant to stay the same. We are meant to evolve. And that is one of the reasons why spark gets stuck or no spark happens, is because people stay stuck and don't evolve. They don't have the E, they don't rise. So we tend to think that in general, that losing our spark comes from some kind of dramatic event. I hear that time and again, like, I just don't feel the same. And then people will search for the one thing. It's not one thing.
Yeah, no.
I mean, literally, it could be a divorce, a death, a trauma, a career change, a crisis moment. We, those things happen, but usually it's an accumulation of things happening much more quietly. Like, we're exhausted, we're caregivers, we're parenting, we're in relationships that aren't really great because we don't feel ourselves in them because they're not fulfilling. Our job consumes us. You see that I see that sort of that burnout and lack of spark in a lot of like first responders, like, because that happens.
Yeah.
So the job is consuming in that way. I call it being over responsibility. You'd find, you find people have a lot of responsibilities, and that is a lot. Of course, I'm always going to tell you that you lose your spark when you say yes more than you say no.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're a people pleaser. When you put other people's needs in front of yours all the time. If you're living according to other people's expectations rather than your own, and you're feeling like that a lot, that I don't live for me, I live for what other people are going to think about me. And sparks don't fizzle out all at once. They sort of fizzle out over time, right? And those things, we lose little pieces at a time. It's like one compromise, one disappointment, one ignored dream, or a few, right?
Yep.
Regret and feeling like you're reminiscing about the past that didn't happen the way you thought it would. One boundary we wish we had enforced, but we didn't, and now we feel it's too late. One time that we tell ourselves, I'll deal with that later, right? These are the things that accumulate, and eventually later becomes years,
Mm-hmm.
right? You look back and go, oh God, I wish I had done that. I did. This may have come up a little bit because I always do my own life reviews, and I was thinking about things. I was like, oh, and I added something back in that I had done 20 years ago last week. And I was like, oh my God. And it wasn't because I was lacking a spark, but it was like, oh, I want to add that back in. And I know you are going to go, really, you added something more. Right.
Yeah.
But it's when we look at something and we go, how did we get here? Right. That's an important question. How did I get here today? Like, if I'm feeling like the lack of something, right? If I'm feeling
Right.
like the spark just isn't there, you're going to ask yourself, like, how did I get here? Because that is an important question, but I don't want to use that question to, be shaming. It's not like, how'd you get here? It's more like, how did I get here? It's because, now this goes to the profound moment that we talked about last week, right? It's because the version of who you have been, or sometimes who you've survived in that period, was doing something important. You were adapting, and people don't give themselves credit for that. You're coping, you're getting through things, you're handling things. A lot of times you're in survival mode, so that requires you to do temporarily things that puts your spark on hold. And that's all okay. Your spark isn't necessarily gone, but sometimes it's simply just kind of like waiting there for you to come back to it. And what happens is people get so defeated in the fact that they think the spark, they're not thinking of it as the spark, but that's my word, I'm using it. They think it's gone because it's too late. I was having a conversation this week with someone, actually two people, but one in particular that we were talking about, their age comes up, that, I always tell people, I'm doing a lot always say that if somebody in your treatment team, like your primary care or somebody else, uses the excuse, and you've heard me say this before, well, you are blah, blah, blah age, or you are getting older.
Yeah.
I always say, you need to have someone that's not telling you that, because that's a cop out. And yes, you might be chronologically a certain age, but that doesn't mean you can't do something that was in your dream level. People say, I'm just too old. What is that? Just, oh yeah. Well, I know people, I teach people in my program that I teach at the college that come back for a second career, that start their second and third career to become a totally different thing in the world and become like a counselor and do things. And they're in their 60s. And I've had people over my 20 some odd years of teaching, in their 70s, come back and do it. So
good for them.
It's a mindset. And that's them essentially saying like, okay, I have a spark that's waiting for me and I'm going to go ignite it. Right. So not buying into that piece of, well, age defines me and therefore I'm supposed to not, I'm supposed to retire. I'm supposed to play golf. I'm supposed to, whatever that message is that's in your head about that. That's just not true. If you're dealing with something like cancer, if you're dealing with something like a chronic illness, you still, one of the things to keep your cortisol level down is to ignite your spark by doing things, even if you have those. You have to function through the dysfunctional areas. Even if you're tired, even if you have those things, you're going to have those moments of up and down, but you still have to really focus on that and not give into it and feel defeated. Even though you might feel defeated, there's nothing wrong with the feeling. It's doing what I said last week. Don't feed it and then build a big story narrative around it. Be in survival mode of survival to succeed, not survival just to get by.
I think you hit on some of the key parts with knowing what you don't want, because I think our life model here in this country is you get into your late 20s and your early 30s and you're giving yourself over to other things. You're giving yourself over to being a parent. You're giving yourself over to a career. You're giving yourself over to your house and your bills and all that stuff. And you're taking care of that stuff. And you tend to be giving yourself away in large quantities. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's not your life anymore. You're taking on other responsibilities. And then you hit your 50s and 60s and you got to find that spark again. You've got to find if you get energy back from those responsibilities, you have to find your way.
Exactly.
Find something to do with it.
Exactly. And I think that's the difference between, and that's like sort of like my second part of this is perfect transition without you even knowing what I was doing, but finding the difference between being lost and being in transition.
Right.
Right. And so there's a huge difference between being lost and being in transition. And people think of themselves often as lost. I don't know if they will use the word, but that's how I have come to know it psychologically and anecdotally, building all of my years of experience, is that when we're in transition, we often interpret like our uncertainty as failure, and or giving into like, well, what you just said, right? So we think, I don't know what I want anymore. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what's next. It becomes overwhelming.
Well, I don't know what I want. When you're a kid, when you're a teenager and in your 20s, you're a certain person and you just follow your needs all the time. You follow your wants and needs all the time. Then you get sparked by the relationship. You get sparked by the career. You get sparked by having a home and raising your kids. And then at a certain point, you're looking around going, okay, what excites me now? What do I need to be?
Exactly. And I think perhaps the problem isn't that you don't know. I think that it's simply that you're in between versions of yourself. Like there's different versions of yourself, and accepting that there are versions of yourself and that you're not just this unidimensional person that has that. And so metaphorically, I ask clients often in this, and maybe this will be the name of the chapter. I don't know. Maybe it'll be spark or maybe it'll be butterfly, but think about a butterfly. I'm big into butterflies, right?
Okay.
And dragonflies, but think about a butterfly specifically, right? When we're talking about what you're saying, there's a period where the caterpillar no longer resembles what it was, correct? Right. And it's, and yet it's still becoming something. And so that in between, when you watch, if you've ever watched the whole process of a butterfly becoming a butterfly, right? It's a very uncomfortable place in the in-betweens. And human beings don't like to become uncomfortable in those places, but butterflies do. They sit they sit in the shit of it. They sit in the chrysalis of the transition, because for all intents and purposes, they are okay with the uncertainty. They're okay with being in that space. Human beings, we want certainty. We want a label. We want to know a plan. We want to know what's next. But sometimes the most important transformation happens during the time when there isn't an answer. And you should see when I say that to clients, they get so frustrated because people want an answer. People want that ability to say, I have the answer, but you have to sometimes think of your transformation as like the butterfly becoming. You're shedding. You've used the word shedding, right? You're shedding,
Yep.
you're questioning, you're reassessing, you're realizing that the life you once wanted may not be the life that you have or want anymore. And that can feel like losing yourself.
Right.
Um, and, but the
Or
way,
into death of self. I was a
right,
parent. I was this job. I was my house. Now I'm downsizing. I'm not taking care of the kids anymore as directly as I used to. It's
right.
death of self. It's finding a new self.
Well, and so in saying it's death of self, it's also that you can look at it less
Chrysalis of self.
drastically and say
Yeah.
you've outgrown yourself, or you've outgrown that period of
Yeah.
time. And when you outgrow
Or to
something,
use the butterfly metaphor, it's the chrysalis of self.
right, it's the chrysalis, it's that transition
Right.
moment. And when you outgrow it, what happens? You come out of that shell into something different and something new. um
It's
and
seeing unknown as opportunity instead of threat.
yes, exactly.
Mm,
And
mm.
that's why I think that people, the opportunity being seen as threat is because it's
Well, unknown is
overwhelming.
a threat.
Well, it's an overwhelming feeling. And
Yeah.
so um I try to tell people that their expectation is maybe too high around what they expect, because the spark isn't always excitement. And people think, when people say, I just want to be happy, and I ask, what does that look like? I often get the answer of this very fantastical looking thing where happiness or joy or excitement or spark is supposed to be this all the time thing. And that isn't what it is. It's not
No.
this excitement all the time. That's a huge misconception that gets people really stuck in a default mode, because anything short of what they're thinking is fail. And so we think of having our spark as being this energetic, always productive, always ambitious, always producing, social, excited, and that's not a spark. That's unrealistic spark.
Right. Right.
Because those are moments that you can have. Sometimes your spark is going to look, I keep saying this, but it's going to look quiet. It's when you say no, that's spark. When you are resting, when you feel tired and give yourself permission to do that, that's your spark. Sometimes when you cry and you have a good cry, that's giving you a reset and a spark. People are like, what? I had to tell someone yesterday that they needed to cry, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, you need a good cry. And they were like, and by the way, they're tearful at the time. I'm like, but they're holding it. So
Yeah.
then
Right.
what does that do? It stuffs down the spark from happening, because crying is catharsis. It gives you the
Right.
ability to, that doesn't mean you cry for days. It means a good cry is really, it's like a good sleep.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
reset.
yeah.
Um, Sometimes the spark can look like sitting alone with your cup of coffee and
Mhm.
realizing, I actually don't want that anymore. I actually don't want to do that thing anymore. You're just having a moment. That's a spark. That's a transitional moment. Sometimes finding your spark means, just becoming interested in something completely new. Like I'm 40 years old and I'm going to go jump out of a plane. Did you see the woman this last week that for the last 13 years, she jumps out of a plane, and she's 107 years old. She does it with her whole family.
God,
There's a whole
no.
bunch of them that
Yeah.
go on a plane, and she jumps, and she doesn't look 107, and she lands, and she was fully interviewed. She's sharp as a tack. And I was like, good for you. But since she turned whatever age that was, right? Do the math. I'm not mathing right now, but she's
Hmm.
107. So go back. So 90, whatever. Do the math. Come on, Lou.
I
96.
missed the first parameter. How many
Oh, so
years has she been
94.
doing it?
Ever since 94. She's been doing it for 13 years. So she goes and jumps out of a plane,
That's
right? So
32
sometimes
years.
it
Yeah.
looks like doing that, right? Sometimes it means doing something completely new. Sometimes it means we often will return to things that we loved in childhood, and in our 30 or our late 20s, early 30s, 40s, 50s, go and do that. Sometimes getting your spark is doing that.
I have a friend who just bought his college car.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just
I have a
reproduced the
friend that
car he
bought
had in college and bought a vintage car.
Yep, I have a friend that bought herself her lifelong dream goal car a few years back. She named it Cora. It's a beautiful car, because and it gave her spark. and I love driving it. It's fun.
Nice.
Um, so, it might be those things, it might be, so think of, it could be something in nature. We talk a lot about, getting nature therapy. It's out of exercise. It's out of listening to music. It's out of being spiritual and drawing energy into yourself. It's about getting something more about learning, being adventurous. It might be simply having a good laugh. When's the last time you had a good laugh? That gives you spark. So I think those things are important psychologically, and because sometimes we aren't actually looking for our happiness, we're looking for aliveness. And so I think that a better ask sometimes is, what makes you feel alive? And
But I think you
really,
make a great point of it. It doesn't have to be constant. People look at happiness as being a constant thing, and it's like just having a few moments of those in your week or an hour in your day. Again, sitting out on the deck with a cup of coffee on a beautiful
contemplating,
day. Yeah.
right? Just contemplating.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're looking for those moments of aliveness, there's a big difference between, like what you just said. Aliveness is that feeling of, I'm here, I'm present, I'm participating in my own life, I'm really connected to myself. And that's something worth finding and keeping.
Hmm.
Right. So, like sitting on your back deck, I have my whole back deck is hummingbird feeders. As much as I can, if I have the moments in the evening, because they're around all day and I'm not here, but at night, I'll just sit out on the back deck and I'll watch for like 30 minutes.
Yep.
In and out, they come in and out. I'm like, this, and that's a recharge and a spark set for me, because I'm like, oh my God, there's life, and I'm here in the moment, and I get to see it and participate, and it's a live feeling. It's such a and it's refreshing, right?
Maybe that's the metaphor. It's more, your phone isn't plugged in all the time. You just charge it every now and again when it needs it. That's the same thing in your life, right? Plug yourself in every
Exactly.
now and again.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a great way of looking at it. Is it's a recharge, right?
Yep.
Restore, reset, right? So you can rise. So this is going to end up into a two-parter because we spent a lot of time on Lindsay today. But so sometimes we people ask me, why did I lose this, or where did it go? And here's the paradox to this, is that sometimes the spark that we are desperately trying to recover is actually a version of ourselves that we've already outgrown. So we might say that I want to go back to
Yeah.
I want to go back to who I used to be, but maybe you don't. Maybe you want to feel the way you felt when you were that person. Maybe you were feeling so good. So you were like, the words people, I'll say, how did that feel? And they'll be like, I was free. I was creative. I was confident. I had adventure. I had hope. I was connected. I was doing, like that's the description of being alive. Right. But you don't want to become that old version of yourself, and you can create something new. And that is a difference between, I'm asking people not to restore through regression. Don't regress. Restoration, rising is about going forward, moving trajectory forward. And that
I would
doesn't
argue against it, because if you have walked away from it over these years, there's a reason for that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it means reclaiming what was valuable and carrying it forward, not reclaiming, but
Because
actually,
I still claim things, you do too. I'm sure many of us do still claim things we did when we were youth. My music, Patriots. I've been a Patriots fan
yeah,
forever. I'm
right.
still excited by that. I didn't walk away from any of that, but there are other things that I did walk away from.
Exactly. And so that's the thing, is that begs the question, then how do you find your spark again?
Yeah.
And it's by not forcing yourself, not by creating some giant improvement list. It's not by deciding that you're going to be completely a different person on Monday, which is people like, I'm going to change everything. It's like, I'm going to lose 30 pounds in a month, right? It's what makes you feel alive. That's, and people that are out there going, I have no idea what makes me feel alive. It's like, okay, how productive, what's something productive you can do today? What makes you, spark comes from losing track of time in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Having curiosity about sitting on your back deck and watching hummingbirds, and what makes them tick and makes you feel good about that. What makes you laugh? What makes you feel good, strong, confident, beautiful, handsome, pretty, like alive inside? Those are all things that you have to consider, because those are where sparks come from. And I think an important question is, what have I stopped doing that I secretly miss? There's things in like that, you were just talking about people get lost in their job or lost in parenthood or lost in something. Ask yourself, what have I stopped doing that I secretly miss? And that's the thing I was talking about that I did last week. I just happened to ask myself that question in my own journey. And I was like, And I literally within 2 days added it back in. And I was like, this is great. And it's not something that happens all the time in terms of the thing it is, but it's like, oh, just thinking about it, I'm like, it's great. It's just the prospect of it. It's like, it's so maybe it's dancing, maybe it's for you painting, maybe it's reading, getting dressed up and going out and you haven't, calling an old friend that you haven't talked to. It's simple things that give you spark. It doesn't have to, people always think it has to be this big thing.
No.
And your spark doesn't always return like a firework. It doesn't have to be like lighting up the sky. It comes in these little tiny flickers. So looking for little flickers of things that make you feel alive, right? So I'm kind of sort of race through to the end here because I know we're short on time, but I can come back to this. But essentially, to sort of wrap up today's show and knowing that we talked about Lindsay Clancy a lot, but in terms of spark and finding your spark and really, knowing your spark can be reignited, that my parting words, I guess, would be, you don't have to become someone new.
No.
Sometimes you simply have to remember who you are and give yourself permission to evolve.
Take some time.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I like to get in the car and drive.
Right. You do not have to become someone new. You just have to give yourself that permission to evolve and be okay to grow and change. Mm-hmm.
Find your spark. Find your
spark. Exactly. And my spark has been watching Lindsay Clancy.
Hey.
I feel for her, and I feel for the loss of those children. It's a horrific. So, but it is a spark.
And it's real and it's caught and it represents all of us. So it's important.
Well, it's also, it's an interest of mine in terms, it's how people function. And I'm fascinated by the psychology of the whole thing.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
So, and how people are, perception is everything. Right. And so it's interesting to watch all these perceptions come together and how so off all of them are they don't connect.
That I found, and I gained this from the Reed trial, and I imagine it's the same with this, that it's so public and it's out there, and so many people are seeing the same information and coming to such vastly different conclusions. It's amazing. It's fascinating.
Yep, and that's life.
Yep.
But it certainly sparks, no pun intended. It certainly sparks your interest, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yes. So if you have nothing to do today and you're listening to podcast, go down the TikTok hole or go down a Reels hole and watch this trial, or go on live and watch, because right now the person that's testifying, my friend yesterday said it's like watching a sloth try to go through a big vat of peanut butter. The guy is like,
really,
he's very monotone and he's very slow, and it's because I think he's that way, but also I think he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, not an expert witness.
Yeah, he's an expert witness, but
yeah,
the only comment I can make about it is there's a lot of elderly and older men testifying for the prosecution, and it's brutal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How little they know about what we're dealing with.
Well, that's one of the other things. It's if you, as an aside, because I did sign off on a positive note, but the fact that there was a man testifying as an expert witness and was using our diagnostic and statistical manual incorrectly the other day was making me cuckoo. And talking about postpartum and not realizing as a man that postpartum is all women are postpartum after they've had a child. And he kept talking about it as if it was like this very unique individual thing to certain women. All women are postpartum, because that's what the word means, is postpartum. And he kept using it and he's an expert. I was like, I could have done a better job without a degree doing this. So it's frustrating.
All right, now you've given me something to dig into.
And it's embarrassing. I've been embarrassed all week for my field because I'm like, I wonder what people are thinking about when now they come in to see me if I'm that way. I'm
Right.
like, oh God, you know, like
Yeah.
now I'm thinking, are my patients thinking that this is what's going to be with them? I'm like, oh my God. So, and everybody's talking about it. I've had tons of patients talking about it, which is why it came up, because people are coming and talking about it and thinking about these things. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a bad representation of psychology.
Well, expert witnesses are bought and sold. That's the way it works.
So, well, listen, I've been an expert witness several times. I was going to say multiple, but several times. And I was not bought and sold.
Okay, when the prosecution brings an expert witness, do they bring in expert witnesses that's going to agree with them or disagree with them?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I was always on the defense.
All right, how about not bought and sold? How about handpicked?
Well, cherry picked, yes.
Yeah.
But in this, when you see this, you're going to find that the cherry picking and the hand picking, they should have done a better job because they've helped the defense.
Yeah.
Cheers to them. They've helped the defense.
Nice.
Thank you. Because they've actually made it, they've made the case for Reddington much easier.
Right.
So
first, yeah.
So everybody go out and go down the rabbit hole. You'll see. Come back and tell me all about it next week. Oh, and by the way,
have a cup of coffee on your back deck.
You what?
Go have a cup of coffee on your back deck.
Yes. By the way, I didn't get a chance to acknowledge there were a whole bunch of people on the side giving lots and lots of feedback over in the comments. I didn't get to it because I wasn't watching them. I had it done in a private chat and I just looked at comments. So thank you, Mary. I will respond back. Yes to some of your questions. Mary just said, because she said if she's found not guilty, wouldn't law enforcement be required to reopen the case and find out who actually did it? My understanding from my friends is that they're not required to reopen it, but one would think that they would do that. That would be yes. So that's one of the things of no one's required, according to what I'm hearing here, that they have to do that. But I would want to be doing that. And then Christina says that she's learning from me and she called me the GOAT. I love that. Thanks, Christina. I loved it. She thinks that she's learning from me all the time. I love, not thinks that she knows that she's learning from me all the time. But yes. And she put a whole bunch of other things, but yes, she's talking about lots of different things. So I will address those questions and the comments that came up. And I appreciate you guys listening. And sorry, it was a little bouncy today. I'll try to be less bouncy next week around the topics, but people were just clamoring for my opinion as a psychologist on the case. And I have many thoughts and clinical observations about the whole thing. And I'm more than willing and helping people out, but I wanted to make sure I stayed on top of my rise and talking about Spark today. So, all right, you guys have a great week and have the great remainder of your August. I will see you in September.